Life processes, video number 7. Students, today you'll be learning about how transportation occurs in plants, under which first I'll be dealing about the need of transporting system in plants. Then I'll be discussing about transportation of water and minerals, under which first I'll tell you about how water and minerals are absorbed by the roots, and then how the two factors, that is root pressure and transpiration, helps in upward movement of water and minerals in the plants. And lastly, I'll be discussing about how food is translocated by the phloem. Let us now know, why do plants need a transporting system, right? Now, as you all know that the plants are producers. They prepare their own food from simple inorganic substances. So for making food, they require substances like carbon dioxide. There is a requirement of water. Then they also require minerals also to prepare different types of organic substances, right? Also, once the food is made in the leaves, this already we have discussed. So once the food is made in the leaves, this food has to be transported to all the distant parts of the body. Now, first let us look at the requirements of photosynthesis. Now, carbon dioxide that the plants require, that is the main raw material that is reduced to carbohydrate by the plants. Now, carbon dioxide is taken by the leaves through the stomata. You have learned like how through the stomata carbon dioxide enters the leaves. Stomata are the tiny pores present on the surface of the leaves. So through that carbon dioxide enters, right? And then from the, after it enters through the stomata, this carbon dioxide will reach each and every photosynthesizing cell by the process of diffusion. Okay, diffusion, as you all know, it is the process by which molecules move from the region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration. So carbon dioxide reach the photosynthesizing cells where photosynthesis has to happen by the process of diffusion. The next requirement of photosynthesis is water, and there are minerals also required by the plants. Now, water and minerals are present in the soil. So, that part of the plant which is in direct contact with the soil will be the part which is going to absorb water and minerals, and that is the roots. So, water and minerals are going to be absorbed by the roots of the plants, and from here this is the water and minerals are to be transported to the leaves. Now, since the distance between the roots and the photosynthesizing part of the plant, that is the leaves, is quite a lot, the water and minerals cannot be transported by simple diffusion. Why? Because diffusion is a very slow process. So, by simple diffusion, these materials cannot be transported to all the parts, because diffusion is a very slow process. Diffusion is a slow process, right? So that's why this water and minerals to be has to be taken very quickly, and that is done by with the help of the transporting system, which includes the xylem. It is the xylem which transports water and minerals to different parts of the plants, to the photosynthesizing parts of the plant. Now, next is the food. The food is made in the leaves, right? So, food is made in the leaves, and after the food or the organic solute is made, this food has to be taken to all the distant parts. Again, this cannot be done by diffusion, because diffusion is a slow process, right? So, for this, for transporting food to different parts, that is the roots and the other parts, again there is a requirement of a transporting system, because diffusion, again I'm telling you, it's a very slow process. It can only transport materials to shorter distances, but in plants, if the food or water minerals are to be transported, that's going to be longer distances can be more than meters and meters, right? So for that, for translocating food from the leaves or the photosynthesizing part to the distant parts, they have got a transporting system which is called as the phloem. The transporting system is known as phloem. right? So xylem in the plants, the xylem, it transports water and minerals, and the phloem transports food or the organic solutes. Remember that as plants are stationary, and also that they have got tissues which are mainly made up of dead cells, the energy requirement of plant is quite low when compared to that of animals, and as a result the plants can do with a slower system of transportation also. Plants have a slower system of transportation when compared to animals. So here are the important points that describe why do plants need a slower system of transportation. The first point is the plant's cells need a regular supply of nutrients and raw materials like the animal cells. As the plants are producers, they make their own food, and for making food they require carbon dioxide, water and minerals. The carbon dioxide is obtained directly from air. It enters the photosynthesizing cells by the process of diffusion through stomata. Water and minerals are obtained from the soil and they are absorbed by the roots, right? And then they are transported to the leaves. The food made, the food made in the leaves has to be transported to distant parts of the plants. As diffusion, this is a very important point, as diffusion is a very slow process, the materials cannot be transported quickly, and so the plants need a transporting system. This transporting system is much slower in plants than in animals. The plants have a slower transporting system as their requirement is quite less when compared to that of the animals. So the nutrients and other requirements are required by the plants at a much slower rate. So as the energy requirement of the plants is quite less, they have got a much slower system of transportation when compared to that of the animals. Let us now study how absorption of water and minerals occurs in the plants. Okay, now as I have just now said you that water and minerals are present in the soil. So that part of the plant which is in contact with the soil will be the one which is going to absorb, and that is the roots. Now roots absorb water by osmosis, whereas minerals are absorbed by active transportation. Let us learn this in detail now. Have a look at this diagram of root. So this is the diagram of root, and the roots are present in the soil, right? Now roots, in try to recall, you have learned that the epidermal cells of the roots, they have got outgrowths, thread like outgrowths, which are called as the root hairs. This is an expanded part of the root showing the root hairs. These are the root hairs, right? So the epidermis of roots have got root hairs, and you've learned in class 9 that the root hairs increase the total surface area for absorption of water and minerals. So this the water and minerals from the soil, they are absorbed. The water and minerals from the soil are absorbed by the root hairs, and then they are taken into the interior of the roots. Water will be absorbed by osmosis. In detail you have learned about this in class 9, and minerals are absorbed by active transportation. Just let us learn a bit more about this. So here this diagram of the roots, a small section of the root shows that between the soil particles there is water present, right? And water, the concentration of water in the soil is quite high when compared to the interiors of the roots, and because of this, water from the region of higher concentration in the soil moves to the region of lower concentration that is present in the root cell, and through the semi permeable membrane, that is, water moves into the roots by the process of osmosis, right? So here this diagram that you see, this is a section of the root. This diagram shows the section of the root. It's a small section of the root taken and seen. What do you find? You've got the epidermis. This what you see is called as the epidermis. This is the root here, right? And then the interior of the root is shown over here. So this is called as a cortex. This is not required in detail for you now, but in class 9 you had learned. Then internally you have got, there is the endodermis, and inside that you find the xylem and the phloem present, right? Now this is the xylem and phloem of the root region, right? This will be connected to that of the stem, and the xylem of the stem is connected to that of the leaves. You've learned in class 9 that the xylem vessels are all interconnected. So water is absorbed by the root hairs and then it moves. This water will be absorbed by the root hairs and then it moves to the interior by osmosis, crossing the cells of the cortex, and finally it reaches the xylem vessels. Now the reason for this osmotic absorption, the reason for osmotic absorption of water is that the minerals are actively taken up. The minerals which are present, they are transported actively. Try to recall this again. You have learned in class 9 about active transportation, which is the transportation of materials from the region of their lower concentration to the region of their higher concentration across a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, so through a selectively permeable membrane, when materials move from the region of low to high concentration, in that case the cell has to spend energy or ATP, and this type of transportation, which is against the concentration gradient, is called as active transportation. So minerals in the cell, they are transported actively, right? And the reason is that the concentration of minerals, the concentration of minerals or the ions in the soil is quite less when compared to the minerals which are present in the interior of the cells of the roots. So minerals in the roots is quite high, and outside it is less. Despite of that, the minerals are absorbed by the root hairs. So for this the roots have to spend energy, so transportation of ions or minerals occurs actively. And since because of this active uptake of minerals or ions by the root hairs, water is absorbed by the process of osmosis. So water is absorbed by osmosis and minerals are taken up by active transportation. So this diagram, just have a look at this diagram which is there. So from the soil, the minerals or ions are taken up by the root hairs by active transportation. They are actively transported, that is, they are transported utilizing energy, and this active uptake of the minerals from the soil results in absorption of water from the soil by the root hairs by the process of osmosis. So once they are absorbed by the root hairs, water and minerals then move to the interior of the roots and finally they reach the xylem vessels which are present. This is a section of the root, right? So the xylem vessels here are shown in cross section, but they are present as tubes, right? They are present as long tubular structures. So the water reaches the xylem vessels of the root, from where it will be taken to the xylem vessel of the stem, and from there the water and mineral is carried to the xylem vessels which are present in the leaves. And let us now study about how transportation of water and minerals occurs in the plants. Before we discuss about the factors that are responsible for this upward movement, let us just have a look at this diagram, the diagram that is shown over here. Just now I have told you that the soil particles have water and minerals, right? So the minerals that are present between the soil particles, they will be taken up by active transportation, right, by the roots. This active uptake of minerals causes water which is present in the soil to be absorbed by osmosis, okay, by the root hairs. So minerals and water are absorbed Then these minerals and water will cross the cells, interior cells of the roots, and finally reach the xylem vessel, which is present in the root region. The xylem vessel of the root, this is the xylem vessel of the root. The vessels are like tubular structures, they are tubular, and the vessels, try to recall, you've learned in class 9 that the vessels are all interconnected. Okay, so thus they form long tubes. So the xylem vessel of the root is connected to the xylem vessel of the stem. Here is the xylem vessel of the stem, and the xylem vessel of the stem is connected to the xylem vessel of the leaf region. So this diagram shows the pathway of movement of water from the root region to the stem and from the stem to the leaves. Here the cross section of leaf, which you have learned in the photosynthesis chapter topic, that is shown. So this is the cross section of the leaf. This diagram is the cross section of the leaf showing the upper epidermis, the lower epidermis. Here is the mesophyll cell. Here you find there the stomata and the xylem vessel, which will bring water and mineral. So now water and mineral which is absorbed in the root region has to be transported to the leaves, and for this there are two forces that are working or that act. One is the root pressure and other is transpiration pull. So now let us learn about each one by one. First let us know what is root pressure. Now root pressure develops in the root, and how does it develop? Let's see. Now the active uptake of ions, I just now told you that ions or minerals are actively taken up by the roots. So the active uptake of ions by the roots results in absorption of water by the roots by osmosis. So this osmotic gain of water by the roots into by the roots, and then movement of this water into the xylem vessel. So this osmotic absorption of water by the xylem vessel, this causes a creation of a positive pressure. So because of the entry of water into the xylem, into the root cells and the xylem vessels, a positive pressure builds up in the root. There is a positive pressure that builds up in the root, right? And this positive pressure that develops in the root is what is called as root pressure. Okay, this is called as root pressure. And this root pressure, so as what, because the xylem vessel will be having water beforehand, so as more and more water enters into the root region, a push is given. This positive pressure will give a push. Okay, this is going to push the water column which is already there in the upward direction. But root pressure is more effective only at night. So the root pressure is effective. The root pressure is effective at night or early in the daytime when the rate of transpiration is quite low. You must be knowing about transpiration. Transpiration is a process by which the plants lose water in vapor form through their aerial parts. So at night and early in the daytime, early in the morning, when the rate of transpiration is quite low, that time root pressure will be effective, because root pressure can give a mild push. They can push the water column in the upward direction. So these will not be effective in the daytime, because that time it is transpiration which is going to act, and root pressure can push water only to smaller distances, not more than 20 meters or so. But plants that you see around, they are quite huge. So in huge plants, the root pressure can be effective in small plants, but in huge plants, the factor that pulls the water or that carries water to longer distances is the transpiration pull. So just have a look at this description which is given over here. Root pressure is described. It is the active uptake of minerals from the soil by the roots causes the osmotic absorption of water by the roots. This creates a positive pressure in the xylem vessels of roots that pushes the water in the upward direction. The root pressure pushes water. It will give a push to the water in the opposite direction. And this positive pressure, the positive pressure that is created is called as the root pressure. Other important thing, the root pressure is effective only at night and early in the morning in short plants, because in tall plants which are long, very tall, meters together, there the root pressure is not going to show its effect. So only in the night and early in the morning. In short plants and tall plants, just to give a mild push, this root pressure will be effective. But in the daytime, to take the water to longer distances in tall plants, the factor that is responsible is called as transpiration pull. So now let us discuss how the transpiration pull helps in upward movement of water and minerals through the plant body. Remember that in the daytime it is the transpiration pull which is the major factor. Root pressure is effective only at night and early in the morning. And also in short plants. In taller plants, to take water to a greater distance, it is transpiration pull that is acting. Also remember that root pressure gives a push. The root pressure will push the root pressure pushes the water column in the upward direction. But this transpiration actually it pulls the water. So water is actually pulled. The main activity that goes and that takes water is pulling of water, and push that is given from the bottom is just a mild push. Okay. Now first let's know what is transpiration. Transpiration you've learned in your junior classes also. It is the process by which the plants lose water. So the process by which the plants lose water in vapor form through the aerial parts of their body. So this loss of water that occurs in the vapor form from the aerial parts of the plant's body is what is called as transpiration. And transpiration mainly occurs through the stomata, which are the tiny pores present on the surface of the leaf. This diagram that you see, it is shows the section of the leaf. It is a cross section of a leaf, and this cross section shows the upper epidermis, the lower epidermis, and the mesophyll cells. And this what you see is a xylem vessel which brings water. This is the xylem vessel that brings water from the root, right? Now let us see how this transpiration pull works. Now as water is lost from the aerial parts, like water again it is lost by transpiration, and transpiration occurs by diffusion. Okay, and what is diffusion? The movement of water molecules from the region of their higher to the region of their lower concentration. So water concentration in this plant body, in the leaves, when you see the concentration of water in the leaves is quite high when compared to the water which is present in the air. As a result of this, water is lost through the stomata, right, by transpiration. Now loss of water, this loss when it occurs, when water is lost, to make up this loss, water will be withdrawn from the mesophyll cell, because when water from the intercellular spaces which are present, when that is lost, this loss will be made up by withdrawing water from the mesophyll cells. So the mesophyll cells of the leaves loses water, and that water again goes out, right? So when the mesophyll cells now lose water, their water concentration will be lesser when compared to water which is present in the xylem vessel of the leaf, because xylem vessel has got water. So if you in terms of water concentration, when you see, the xylem vessel has got a higher water concentration when compared to the water which is present in the leaves. And why less water in the leaf cells? Because water from the leaf cell has been lost to exterior. So due to this difference in water, again water is withdrawn from the xylem vessels of the leaves into the mesophyll cells and then to the intercellular spaces. So as water from the mesophyll cells, as the water is taken into the mesophyll cells from the xylem vessels, the loss of water from the xylem vessels creates a tension or a suction or a negative pressure. There is a negative pressure that is created, and this negative pressure is because of loss of water. It is because of loss that occurs through the xylem vessels present in the leaves. So this tension, suction or negative pressure that is created, this tension is what is called as transpiration pull. It is called as the transpiration pull, and because of this negative pressure that is created, this negative pressure will now pull water from the stem region. Water is pulled because water is lost from the stomata, then this loss is made by taking water from the leaf cells. They will make water by taking water from the xylem vessels of the leaves, and that creates a negative pressure due to which water is withdrawn from the xylem vessel of the stem. So as the xylem vessel of the stem loses water to the leaves, then they will take or pull water from the xylem vessels which are present in the root region. And when this happens, when the xylem vessels pull water from the root region to the stem, then water will be taken from the root cells. And as water is taken from the root cells, water will, because there will be the water concentration is going to reduce, so water now is going to be absorbed by the root hairs, and then it moves again to the interior. So this is a continuous process that happens, and this is how the transpiration helps in absorption of water and mineral. Okay, so this is how the transpiration, not only it helps in transportation or upward movement of water and minerals, it also helps in absorption. Okay, it is going to help in absorption. So just again a briefing, I'll just let you know. Now as I said you, water is lost from the stomata through those pores which are present, and loss of water will cause the water to be taken from the mesophyll cells of the leaves. As they lose, the mesophyll cells of the leaves lose water, they will withdraw water from the xylem vessels which are present in the leaves, and when the xylem vessels lose water to the leaf cells, a negative pressure creates. This negative pressure is going to pull water from the xylem vessels which are present in the stem region. So when that happens, then the stem region of the xylem in the stem region will pull water from the region where water is present in more amount, that is from the xylem vessels of the root. So when this happens, the xylem vessels of the root withdraws water from the cortical cells of the roots, and when this happens, the cortical cells will take water from the root hairs, and the root hairs will absorb water from the soil. Okay, not just water, so water is absorbed and the minerals are also absorbed. So in this way, the transpiration helps both in absorption, it helps in absorption as well as transportation of water. So it helps in both absorption and transportation of water and minerals. So just let me just read out what is written over here. The loss of water in vapor form, that is transpiration through the stomata, causes water to be withdrawn from the cells of the mesophyll in the leaves. This causes the water to be drawn from the xylem vessels of the leaves. Due to withdrawal of water from the xylem vessels of the leaves, a negative pressure or suction develops called as transpiration pull, which then pulls water from the lower columns of xylem. Okay. So now the importance of transpiration is shown over here. Okay. Transpiration, it helps in absorption. It helps in absorption as well as upward movement of water and minerals dissolved in it from the roots to the leaves. This is the first important function. Second important function of transpiration is that it also helps in temperature regulation. The transpiration process keeps the surface of the leaves the temperature of the surface of the leaves lower than the outer environmental temperature, and that is required for the process of photosynthesis to take place. And remember that the effect of root pressure in transportation of water is more important at night. During the daytime, when the major driving force, the force that actually drives water and minerals, is actually transpiration pull. So transpiration pull is a major driving force in the daytime that pulls the water from that not only just pulls the water, it will first help in absorption of water, and then it pulls the water to the region. So like a rope, if the rope is pulled from one side, you find that the entire rope is pulled. So in this way, loss of water through the environment will cause water to be withdrawn from the xylem vessels of the leaves. They will pull water from the xylem vessel of the stem, then the water from the xylem vessel of the root is pulled, and that helps in absorption, that causes the absorption of water and minerals from the soil. Okay, so this is how the two forces, root pressure and transpiration, helps in upward movement of water and minerals. Let us now study about how transportation of food occurs in the plant's body. Food, as you all know, is made in the mesophyll cells of the leaves. Already I have discussed about the cross section of the leaf. Just have a look at this cross section. Okay, so these are the mesophyll cells, and here you've learned that the mesophyll cells, in the mesophyll region you've got xylem. You don't just have xylem vessels, there's phloem also. So now as we are discussing about the translocation of food, we have to now discuss the role of phloem in the same. So a small portion of this region with the xylem and the phloem is being shown in the diagram that you see here. Okay, this diagram has got a small portion of it. Here is the mesophyll cell, right? Here you have got the sieve tubes and the xylem vessels which are adjacent to the sieve tubes, right? Now, and also you know that the xylem vessels and the sieve tubes of the leaves is connected to the xylem vessels of the stem region or the sieve tubes of the stem region, and they are connected to the xylem vessels of the stem is connected to the xylem vessel of the root, and the sieve tube of the stem is connected to the sieve tubes which are present in the root. So all are connected to one another in the form of a tubular tube, right? Now first let us know what is translocation of food. The term that we make use of for transportation of food is translocation, and translocation is transportation of food or organic solutes by the sieve tubes of the phloem. It is the sieve tubes of the phloem with the help of companion cells. You have learned this in class 9 that the phloem has got four important components: the companion cells, the sieve tubes, the phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. And of these four, the sieve tubes are the elements which translocates food, and that it does with the help of the companion cells. Here this is the sieve tube, and the cell that you see here is called as a companion cell. So with the help of companion cells, the food is translocated from the region of their availability. Generally the region of availability is the leaf region, because it is the mesophyll region where food is made. So from the region of the availability, which is called as a source, okay, to the region of its utilization or the storage, that is called as the sink. So leaves generally serve as a source. The leaves of the plants generally serve as a source, and the sink is the storage organ. Okay, there are two terms, source and sink, right? But the relation between source and sink is a bit variable. It's like in xylem, you have learned that xylem transports water and minerals always in the upward direction, right? But through the phloem, the food is translocated bidirectionally. What does bidirectional means? Normally the food that is made in the leaves is transported through the sieve tubes to the storage organs, which may be roots, the fruits, the seeds. So those are the storage organs. This is a normal transportation. But in the spring season, when the new buds arise, when there are parts growing in the spring season, the food will be taken from the from the storage organs. It will be taken from the storage organs to the growing regions. Okay, to the growing regions. So in the spring season, when this type of transportation occurs, then that the storage organs then will be serving as the source, and the growing region, that is the buds and all, will be serving as the sink. So one direction is from the leaves to the storage organ, and other direction will be from the storage organs to the growing region. That's why we say that translocation of food through the phloem is bidirectional. But through the xylem, water is transported in just one direction, that is in the upward direction, from the roots to the photosynthesizing parts of the plants. So let us now study about how food is transported through the sieve tubes. Remember that the food, it's not just that the food, that is the photosynthesizing material that is made in the mesophyll cell, that is what is transported. It is by the sieve tubes. The sieve tubes also transports other organic solutes like amino acids, then the plant hormones, about which you will be learning in the later chapters to come. So all these are also transported by the phloems, sieve tubes of the phloem. Now, as already stated to you, that the food is made in the mesophyll cell, and this food will be made in the form of glucose. This you have already learned, that the food is made in the form of glucose. But when the food has to be translocated, this glucose is first converted to sucrose. Okay, the glucose is converted to sucrose, and it is in this form that the food is then transported to different parts. How? Let us now see. Now, sucrose that is present in the mesophyll cells, now from the mesophyll cell is actively uploaded into the sieve tubes. Just have a look at it. The companion cells play a very important role in this. So sucrose that is made from glucose will be actively loaded into the sieve tubes of the phloem. The difference that you find in transportation of xylem and phloem is that in case of xylem, first thing is that the water and minerals are transported through the xylem by physical forces like root pressure, transpiration pull. There is no expenditure of energy as such when water and minerals are transported through xylem vessels. But when food or the organic solutes are transported through phloem sieve tubes, that time there is expenditure of energy done. The cells have to spend energy, especially the cells spend energy during the loading of food and again during this unloading of food. Okay, their energy is spent. Second difference that you find in case of xylem and phloem is the xylem transports food only in one direction, that is, its transportation is unidirectional. But as just now I have told you, translocation of food is bidirectional. So here the source of the, because translocation is transportation of food from source to sink, and source is the part of the plant where food is available, and sink will be the part where the food has to be taken to. That is generally a storage organ. So in the source region, that is in the mesophyll region, in this case, the sucrose that is made from glucose is actively, by expenditure of energy, it is loaded into the sieve tubes. Now, as sucrose is loaded, the concentration of solute, you've learned this again in class 9. You have learned about the hypertonic solutions and all, right? So, as sucrose is loaded into the sieve tubes in the leaf region, this will be the leaf region, into the sieve tubes, what happens is the concentration of the sap which is present in the sieve tubes, its concentration increases. Okay, the solute concentration is increasing. Okay, the sap now here becomes hypertonic. Okay, it becomes hypertonic. Hypertonic when compared to what? When compared to the water that is present or the fluid that is present in the xylem. So here the sap has become hypertonic, and that is water concentration in the sieve tubes is quite less when compared to the water which is present here in the xylem vessels. As a result of this, water from the xylem vessels will move. Here you can see The water, because of the increase in the concentration of sucrose or the solute in the sieve tubes of the leaves, water from the adjacent xylem vessel, because where you have phloem sieve tubes, you will have xylem vessels also, water is taken into the sieve tubes of xylem vessels. As water enters into the sieve tubes of the xylem vessel, you have learned that the pressure will increase. So, there is an increase in the osmotic pressure. The osmotic pressure increases. Okay, and as the pressure in the sieve tubes increases, now the food along with the other dissolved, like the sap which is present in the sieve tubes with dissolved substances like the organic solutes, food and other things, now from the region of higher osmotic pressure in the source region will move to the region of low osmotic pressure or low pressure, and this low pressure is maintained in the sink region. How there is a low pressure maintained? Let us see. So now as the food reaches the sink region, from in the sink region where there is a low pressure maintained, okay, the pressure maintained over here is low. So we are now I'm telling you how this low pressure or why low pressure is maintained. So as the food reaches the sink region, this food or the organic solutes will be again withdrawn by active transportation. Again, actively the food is withdrawn from the sieve tubes into the sink region, that is into the storage organs. So as this withdrawal occurs, and this withdrawal will occur again with expenditure of energy. So as this withdrawal occurs, the concentration of the solute in the sink region is going to reduce. The solute concentration is going to reduce. That means that the sap now over here becomes hypotonic. Okay, it becomes hypotonic when compared to the fluid that is present in the xylem vessels of the root. Okay, here you find water content is less when compared to the water content which is present in the sink region, in the sieve tubes of the sink region. So because of this difference in water concentration, water in the sink region in the sieve tubes is much higher when compared to the water in the sink region in the xylem vessels. Because of this, water moves out of the sieve tubes, and as water moves out, the pressure over here is reduced. So low pressure is maintained in the sink region and high pressure is maintained in the source region, or from where food is to be taken. And because of this difference in pressure, the food or the organic solutes are transported from the region of high pressure to the region of low pressure. So this is how the food is translocated through the phloem. In this video I have discussed about how transportation occurs in plants. I had told you about why plants need a transporting system, then how water and minerals are absorbed, and then I had discussed about the role of transpiration, pull and root pressure in upward movement of water and minerals, and finally I had discussed about how translocation of food occurs. So on the basis of the video that you have watched, there is a small assignment that you need to do in your bio copy. So first question is, why do plants have a slower transporting system when compared to animals? Then second question is that how do plants absorb water, or how is water absorbed by the roots of the plants? The next question is, what are the factors that are responsible for upward movement of water and minerals in the plants? You have to explain it, right? Next is, how does transpiration help in transportation of water and minerals in tall plants? And finally, how is food translocated or transported in plants?